As twilight settled on April 9, 1865, a defining chapter in American history reached its climax in a quiet Virginia town. General Robert E. Lee, the revered leader of the Confederate forces, stood at a crossroads, his only path forward: surrender to Union General Ulysses S. Grant. But what if this surrender was more than just an admission of defeat? What if it was shaped by personal turmoil, strategic errors, and a fierce determination to uphold honor even in the face of devastation? Today, we delve into the hidden layers of this historic moment where pride, duty, and humanity intersected. Stories that expose the raw emotions behind the end of a brutal war. Before we start, don't forget to like and subscribe to join our growing community. The march to Appomattox was one of exhaustion and relentless pressure. After 4 grueling years of civil war, both sides bore deep scars. By April 1865, the Confederacy was on the brink of collapse. Richmond's fall on April 3rd was a crushing blow. The Confederate capital had fallen, signaling the South's impending defeat. Lee's forces retreated westward, pursued by Grant's advancing Union troops. Conditions for Lee's army were desperate. His men were starving, ragged, and demoralized. The brutal winter had depleted their supplies, and hope was fading. Once proud soldiers now marched with vacant stares, their strength sapped. Despite urgings from officers like General James Longstreet to surrender, Lee resisted, convinced that fighting on was both honorable and necessary. On April 7th, Grant sent a sobering message, appealing to Lee's sense of duty. "It is my duty to spare further bloodshed," Grant wrote. His words revealed not just strategy, but a weariness of war's endless toll. Yet Lee hesitated, demanding terms before considering surrender. As Union forces tightened their grip, Lee's advisers grew more insistent. Longstreet warned him bluntly, "The end is upon us." Still, Lee pressed forward, unwilling to forsake the cause he had championed: states' rights and Southern independence. By dawn on April 9th, the two armies stood on the verge of final confrontation. Lee's forces were a fraction of their former strength, barely holding together. In a desperate gamble, Lee ordered an attack at Appomattox Station, a decision that backfired disastrously. Union cavalry under General Philip Sheridan outmaneuvered them, seizing supplies and cutting off escape routes. Sheridan's men moved with ruthless efficiency, capturing thousands of Confederates in swift skirmishes. Trapped and outmatched, Lee faced an impossible choice: fight a doomed battle or seek terms of surrender. The gravity of his decision weighed on him as he considered his men's fate and the South's future. As Grant's forces closed in, victory seemed inevitable. "My troops moved swiftly, without faltering," Grant later recalled. "They marched with purpose, ready to end the war's carnage." The fateful meeting took place in Wilmer McLean's home at Appomattox Courthouse, a humble setting for a momentous event. The two generals cut contrasting figures: Grant in his worn field uniform, Lee immaculate in Confederate gray, his sword at his side. This was more than a military negotiation. It was charged with history and emotion. Grant, recalling their shared past in the Mexican-American War, set a tone of respect despite their opposing roles. Once comrades, now adversaries in a bloody conflict, they discussed surrender terms. Grant's conditions were surprisingly generous. Confederate officers could keep their sidearms and horses, a gesture of reconciliation, not vengeance. He understood that many Southern soldiers simply wanted to return home. As Lee stepped onto McLean's porch after signing the surrender, he paused, staring toward his defeated army. It was a silent, heavy moment, a leader confronting the cost of war. Union officers stood at attention as Lee rode away to break the news to his men. The surrender's impact rippled beyond the battlefield. Soldiers from both sides wept and cheered, acknowledging their shared suffering. For Lee, leaving Appomattox meant more than relinquishing command. It was the end of an era. Appomattox didn't just end the war, it set the stage for a fractured nation's healing. Yet its complexities are often overlooked. the anguish of leaders like Lee forced to concede against impossible odds. History tends to simplify such moments, but the human toll was profound. Appomattox reminds us that even in defeat there can be dignity, and in reconciliation, hope. In the days that followed, reactions varied. Some Southerners felt despair, others relief. In Washington, Lincoln saw an opportunity for unity, urging malice toward none. Yet divisions lingered. Some in Congress demanded harsh penalties for Confederates, while others pushed for leniency. Reconstruction loomed, raising difficult questions. How would freed slaves integrate into society? How would a defeated South rebuild? For Lee, surrender was a personal reckoning. A man who had devoted himself to a cause now faced its collapse. His pride had prolonged the fight, even as his advisers pleaded for surrender. Grant, shaped by years of war, approached the moment with pragmatism. He knew the cost of continued bloodshed. Their meeting at McLean's home became symbolic, a moment where enemies found common ground. Grant later reflected on their stark differences: Lee's polished uniform, his own mud-splattered attire, yet both were bound by mutual respect, forged in war's crucible. When the guns fell silent at Appomattox, the war ended, but its echoes lingered. Lee, once a Southern icon, became a figure of both reverence and sorrow. What truly unfolded in those final hours? What thoughts haunted Lee as he addressed his men? How did Grant, his longtime foe, perceive this turning point? Appomattox wasn't just an ending, it was the first step toward a fractured nation's uncertain future. As we reflect, we must ask, how do we learn from the past? What does it mean to surrender with honor? And how can these lessons guide us today? Thank you for watching today's episode on Empire History. Central, please like, subscribe, and share to help grow our rising community.